So, as I was mentioning before we started recording, I was leaving my apartment yesterday.
Okay.
To go out about the town, and between the shrubbery, there was this corpse of a crow.
Oh my!
A large crow.
How big are we talking? How large are we talking?
About the size of a crow. I immediately got out my phone and I looked up, dead crow significance? Question mark. Spiritual significance, dead crow? Question mark, Google. And it said death.
Death.
Or transformation.
That feels pretty accurate.
Yeah, so I want to leave a message for our listeners. If I die, I want you to know, listeners, that Madison has been embezzling funds from our company, and she's been doing this for a long time, years even.
What?
There are records that date back. She's been embezzling.
How long?
Please.
How long?
4 years.
Damn it. I was going to say if it was longer than I've been there, then that wouldn't make sense, but damn it, that would make sense.
Yeah, so I guess you're under arrest now.
Damn.
Yeah. That's the parting message that I want to leave on this earth.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's pretty much it.
I love that. Yeah. I love how you would just like throw me under the bus like that too.
Of course, anytime. So I don't know about you, but whenever there are things in life that you hand wave because they seem pretty insignificant, but then there are signs and symbols that just kind of smack you right in the face, and
like
you have
a dead crow at your feet.
Like a dead crow, literally at your feet.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, hey, is the universe trying to tell me something? Huh?
Do you think the universe is trying to tell you something?
Yeah, probably.
What do you think it is trying to tell you?
Probably gonna die. Which is honestly, it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. You know, people often...
Okay.
Yeah, people often care so much about longevity in their life.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes it's just like, maybe 80, 90 years isn't really the goal.
Okay.
I've known a lot of people who are old who just don't want to live anymore.
That is true. I think it doesn't necessarily depend on age, but also what you're able to do and what you want to do.
Yeah. And what you're able to do diminishes significantly the older you get.
It's true.
What you want to do increases significantly, I'd imagine, the older you get.
I would imagine, but I like you, have seen people who are old or even not so old who have just like have, I don't want to say no will to live. They have a will to live, but it's like that they don't want to really do anything with that time.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Some
tragic
people have
to
just
me.
truly checked out.
That's tragic to me.
Yeah. There's so much on this earth to enjoy, like
the Grand Canyon.
This episode brought to you by the National Parks of the United States. The Grand Canyon was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah. What do you mean?
I didn't know that you were interested in seeing the Grand Canyon.
What do you mean? Of
The
course
Grand Can,
The Grand Canyon.
as they say.
Why wouldn't I be interested in seeing the Grand Canyon?
Because it's a fucking canyon. What is there to see? You can look it up on Google Images.
But I want to see it in person and I want to hike in there.
Okay. Well, I think you'll have a great time. I think you really will.
You don't want to see the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, when you're on your deathbed, you'll be like, man, I'm so grateful. I got to see the Grand Canyon.
Okay. I probably will be.
So just a difference in values.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you enjoy...
seeing nature. You enjoy looking at it online.
Yeah, I can make it my fucking desktop background, see it every day.
Every day.
Every day.
What would your be? What would
your be?
What would your be? What's your equivalent of a wondrous, momentous thing that you'd want to see and do before you die?
Probably Yellowstone.
How is that so far off from the Grand Canyon?
No, I'm just goofing around.
So you wouldn't want to see the Yellowstone Park
I
either?
don't give a fuck about Yellowstone. We don't have to get into it, but I think that
we don't have to get into it. We're already into it. If you have such strong feelings about Yellowstone National Park, please enlighten us.
It's just like, all right, you spend a lot of time to get there, hours,
Okay.
like a dozen hours.
Okay.
You are exhausted. It's hot outside. You walk around, and all you can see of Yellowstone is within the bounds of your vision.
Yes.
And that's it.
That's usually how seeing works.
Yes. And then you look around, you see some stuff, you go to a themed restaurant, you might get a souvenir, and then you go home, and then you ham it up for the people that you talk to. You're like, oh, wow, Yellowstone was so beautiful. When in actuality, it was just a bunch of stones that were yellow.
Wow. You know, for someone who touts being optimistic and upbeat, this is probably the most pessimistic I've ever heard you, especially about something as beautiful as nature.
I am a realist and an optimist. And I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive.
But like, whenever I went to Maine was beautiful. I loved it. Like, he's sarcastically nodding and smiling.
Yeah, no, yeah. So tell me more.
No, I don't want to now.
Yeah, no, I've been to Maine. Maine is quite lovely. Yeah.
Okay, so then what is your equivalent to seeing the Grand Canyon or going to like Yellowstone or Joshua Tree or Acadia, which is in Maine where I went and it was beautiful?
Gosh.
Yeah. Well, wait.
Writing a poem
Okay.
that you're really proud of and sharing it with others?
Okay. Okay. I guess for me, that feels like you can do that so easily.
Yeah.
But
Then why haven't you done it?
because I don't necessarily want to do it.
Oh, that's fair, yeah.
But I perform
Yes.
in front of people pretty often.
Yeah.
So that feels more accessible and like not basic, but like how often do you get to go to the Grand Canyon? How often do you get to write a poem?
So here's a question. When you perform,
Yes.
performance
Yeah.
goes off without a hitch.
Yeah.
You have the admiration of the crowd.
Yeah.
You feel fulfilled in
Yeah.
having all that work culminate in this
Absolutely.
beautiful moment
Yeah.
of sharing your essence with the crowd.
Uh-huh.
Is that better than Maine?
I wouldn't say better, just different. So
But-
I understand. I respect that. Yeah. No. I would probably say it is better in the way that I feel, but like about myself pride-wise, but like there's something about like seeing the wonder that is nature in front of you, or like seeing the wonder that is like a man-made construction, like the Tower of Pisa, or something like Statue of David or something. Like people made that many years ago. Just like the wonder of that. I think part of it is the wonder of time for me, since I have such an issue with time.
Yes.
I
We
think
talked about this recently, that and we brought it up a few times in the podcast, that you have a very complicated relationship with time.
I do.
Mm-hmm. So speak on that.
Speak on that.
Yeah, no, speak on that. Yeah.
The idea of time passing makes me very anxious. Always has. Ever since I was a wee lass. Ever since I can remember.
A little grom.
A little Brom.
Grom.
Grom? What did you say?
Grom.
Grom.
It's what gremlins are before they transform.
I did not know that. See? Ever since I was a wee little lass Brom. And I've gotten better with it through the years, as one kind of does have to accept these things. But it is still there. So I between the anxiety that time passing brings me and the wonder and awe I feel about like how mind blown I get about the concept of time, that's probably where that stems from.
Let's unpack that a little bit more.
Oh God.
So what is it exactly about the passage of time?
It's like beautiful and tragic at the same time.
Yes.
And I think that the tragedy part of it is what tears me up a bit. Like, I love watching my niece grow up, but thinking about her as a baby just 3 years ago is like thievery. Like, and then me 3 years ago, I was still an adult, but her 3 years ago, so different. And like, it goes so fast. And I think especially like with childhood, you have a shitty childhood, that fucks you up.
Truly.
Like, because childhood is, because don't know if we talked about this before, but like the idea of time passing, like whenever you're a child, everything feels like it takes so much longer because you haven't been on this earth for very long. So your concept of time passing is very different than my concept of time passing. So for a 3-year-old, having 1 year pass, that is an eternity. But for me as an adult, it's a blink of an eye. So I think that aspect of it also scares me. Because even as a kid, I was very much aware of the fact that this is going to go so fast. And then it didn't, but then it also did. And now here I am.
Yes. And time only continues to accelerate.
Yeah.
I actually looked into the reason behind that, why that happens recently. It's the more novelty that you have in your life, the slower it moves. But as you continue to get older, that novelty decreases. And thus time begins to move more quickly because things become routine.
Yes.
And new events don't transpire in your life.
So that's probably one of the reasons why I like to visit new things and new places, because it gives me that novelty. So if we are unpacking it, that's what I would say.
Interesting. What a good reason.
Yeah.
Wow. You're really right. That's something interesting there.
Yeah.
So the constant pursuit of novelty to slow down the passage of time is ultimately what underlies your desire for travel.
Probably. Honestly, that coupled with like the wonder that I feel in terms of like how far in the past certain things existed, like that's so hard for me to wrap my brain around. Like you say 400 years and that feels like an eternity, because it kind of is, but then also it's only a very fractional part of the time that we have been existing as a society. So it's just crazy. Like thinking back on time in that regard really sends me.
Maybe the reason why I don't like travel as much is because I just find my novelty elsewhere.
That's probably it. I think that's a great reason.
Wow.
Yeah. Look at us.
Hey.
Coming to conclusions.
Welcome, everyone.
To My Existential Crisis, the podcast where we talk about all the things that make us question our entire sense of self. My name is Madison Epley.
And my name is Dylan Berger.
Okay.
All right. Let's get into it.
So, you
just a little dance.
Today, Dylan, I have got, besides the passage of time, I have another story that really sent me spiraling whenever I first learned about it. And even like thinking about it still definitely sends me spiraling. So I'd love to share that with you.
Absolutely. I'm curious to learn more.
Yeah. Today, I'm going to talk about the OceanGate Submersible Disaster. The Titan.
Yeah. Everyone's favorite submersible disaster.
Everyone's favorite submersible disaster. My sources are, quickly, because I will forget them at the end, Titan, the OceanGate Submersible Disaster documentary on Netflix, which I just rewatched before these notes. BBC, Wikipedia, CBS News, USA Today, and The Independent. So lots of news sources. Let's get into it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you quickly will, because I'm just going to tell you what happened. The documentary starts by showing the 5 ill-fated victims amidst the diving crew on a boat ride out into the middle of the ocean around Newfoundland at 8:30 a.m. Their destination, the docked Titan submersible above the wreck of the Titanic. So in order to actually get to the submersible, you have to go out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
Because that's where the Titanic wreck is.
Already we can see the irony of yet another disaster adjacent to the Titanic.
Yes. And we will talk about that.
Yeah.
These passengers were naturally excited to be some of the very few people in the world who would be able to see and explore the Titanic up close and in real life. Both the passengers and crew were buzzing with excitement and anticipation, and then we cut to the inside of the submersible where we see the passengers getting settled in while looking out at the crew who are sealing the capsule to lock them inside. They have to bolt the door.
No way out. Yeah, I remember one of the last things that one of the people said before getting into the submersible was, "I love not being crushed."
Seriously?
No.
Oh,
what a weird thing to say.
I don't don't know.
Why would anyone say
You
that?
said it was such, like, truth. I never know, Dylan, okay? You always say things with such truth, and I would just believe it, okay?
Yes.
Just so that you know, everything that Dylan brings to the table for this podcast is made up. That is how much we are bamboozled by this man.
Yeah, every
time.
story I brought, I just made that shit up.
Just made it up.
Yeah. And I'll keep doing it. It's bullshit or bullshit.
Bullshit or
all the way down.
Always bullshit. So as the crew is screwing the doors up into place to hold their airtight chamber, CEO and founder Stockton Rush, also inside with the passengers, he's one of them, turns to his guests and says, "There's really nothing that happens that requires an immediate response, okay? So if you hear an alarm, don't worry about it. The best thing you can do is to not do anything."
I love that little okay he added. Okay?
Okay.
All right?
It's really fine. If you hear an alarm, we're fine.
The alarm shouldn't even be there.
Yeah.
Honestly, we don't know why we got it installed.
Well, I will tell you. I'll tell you all the deets. So, as the Titan descended, they maintained constant communication with the launch team above water. That is until 10:47 a.m. when they would send their very last message. A U.S. Navy acoustic detection system designed to locate military submarines detected an acoustic anomaly at 11:04 a.m., less than 2 hours after the Titan submerged. They were later clued in that it was the submersible that was making the noise. The submersible was last heard from 1 hour and 45 minutes into its dive, but the OceanGate company on land didn't sound the alarm to authorities to get help for another several hours. Signal to the Titan was lost, and the submersible was reported across the news media as missing. Before we had any actual details about what actually happened, global media outlets reported that the submersible had lost contact with the base, lost power, and was essentially just lost in the ocean with a countdown clock of the oxygen left for the 5 passengers to survive on. So it was a race against time with every passing minute, hour, and day. The chances of finding the submersible with its passengers alive was growing slimmer and slimmer. The Coast Guard searched an area 2 times the size of Connecticut and at a depth of 2.5 miles deep.
I don't know how big Connecticut is.
It's a smaller state.
Okay.
But that's a lot of area to cover in the ocean.
Yeah.
And whereas in Connecticut, you only have to travel on land, they're covering 2 times the size of Connecticut around the Titanic, but also from the top of 2.5 miles to the bottom of 2.5 miles. So there's also all that space in between that they're searching.
How many Connecticut's is that?
It's precisely. Yeah. So a lot of space. The U.S. Army was also tasked with flying helicopters over the ocean to aid the search. It was, needless to say, a massive search and rescue operation where they worked under extremely treacherous conditions. The weather was working against them, the sea was working against them, and time itself was working against them. See, this was very poignant for us to talk about that in the beginning. Because that's probably why this freaks me out so much.
So they were searching a area at least like 20 Pensacola's wide.
What is Pensacola?
Pensacola? You haven't heard of Pensacola?
I've heard of it. Sorry, where is it, rather?
I want to say Pennsylvania.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It's not from an area I'm from, so I don't know it.
I regret bringing it up.
So between the fascination with the Titanic, the sunken ship the Titan were exploring, the idea of the rich going on a holiday to visit such a place, time running out, and the terror of the situation itself was media gold. So Dylan, do you remember this story being in the news?
Yes.
What do you remember? What were you thinking?
I remember this story being everywhere for like a month or 2.
Yeah.
It was reported on endlessly. It was memed about.
Yeah.
There was I would say unsurprising amount of just merciless jokery.
Yes.
Surrounding this because of the fact that they were billionaires.
Yes.
Doing this, and people just don't have sympathy for billionaires.
Yes.
And it was. I mean, you still sometimes see clips on like TikTok of like simulations of what happened inside of the submersible set to like a Creed song.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. So that is, so this, I definitely have a pretty good idea of
Cool.
what exactly happened.
Awesome. Well, I remember thinking like that precise situation is like my worst nightmare. Like imagine losing power on this vessel, losing touch with your base, and knowing that you have a set amount of oxygen left and there's nothing you can do. You're literally like waiting in darkness.
Yeah.
For people to just come and rescue you. And like the countdown clock is just ticking.
And how are they going to rescue you?
Exactly.
Because you are however many feet underwater. And what are they going to do? Get another submersible to lift you out? Or
essentially, yeah.
Get a big claw?
Yeah, that's basically what they did.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is just my worst nightmare. I definitely spiraled about this because I just kept thinking like, imagine being a person on that submersible, like in that situation. That's terrifying because as we're hearing it out in the news media, from what we thought, these people were actively lost underwater. So we're reporting about it and we're talking about it. And then there are these people who are just unknowing if anybody is searching for them in reality. Like, how can they know for sure? They don't have access to, they don't know what's being said about them. They don't know, where people are at. It was just terrifying. Yeah. Terrifying. So during the search and rescue mission, Canadian aircraft detected banging sounds coming from the ocean, which were initially interpreted as the panicked banging of the passengers inside, desperately trying to be located. So search and rescue operations were relocated to try to find the origin of these noises, hoping to find the vessel. So again, hearing that, I'm just like, these people are terrified. They're scared for their life. They're actively banging on the inside of this vessel to try to be located. That's just terrible.
I'm wondering how like sensitive the instruments had to be to pick up that noise.
Well, I was thinking about that. If you think about it, sound in water travels incredibly fast. So like, for example, if you are trying to whisper over water and somebody is 20 feet away from you, they could probably hear it because sound will just travel across the water. Actually, I was watching an episode of Survivor, and these two people were like huddling up and talking over, like trying to like scheme. And the one person like on the opposite side of like the watering hole was like, I like later in like the camera cuts through, like I could hear every fucking word they were saying, talking about me. Like they're fucking idiots for not knowing that sound travels over water. Like that's the worst place to try to gather and talk shit.
That's wild.
Yeah. So especially underwater, it travels very fast. And plus there's the echo of the hull, where it would probably like bounce off of like the, you bang on metal, it kind of like echoes that plus underwater.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
So there's that. And at this point in the media, all the family members with loved ones aboard had hope that they would be found alive. It would need to happen quickly, but no one mentioned debris being found. Everyone had an understanding that these poor people were still alive and waiting to be rescued. But for all the former and current employees who worked at OceanGate, they knew. Their general assumption was the worst case scenario, which is what happened to be the truth. 4 days into the search, debris was found scattered across the ocean floor. You could see the once sealed dome door ejected from the vessel, fully intact and round still. It was followed by frayed pieces of carbon fiber vessel, torn apart, imploded, strewn across the ocean floor. By all accounts, it was a mathematical certainty that the submersible would fail, and yet it was still greenlit. So how did this disaster happen?
That is incredibly grim.
It is.
They knew that it was probably going to fail, and they did it anyway?
Yes, 100%.
For that cash. For that money.
Money and fame. That was it.
I do the same, to be honest.
Crazy. That is insane commentary. All right, so just to give you some background on OceanGate, it was founded in 2009 by Stockton Rush. Stockton was born into a wealthy family and was actually descendant of 2 signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Really?
Yes, so needless to say, he came from a very long line of generational wealth and power.
Yeah, with a name like Stockton.
Stockton Rush, yep. He graduated from Princeton with a degree in aerospace engineering and a bachelor's in business admin from Berkeley. After being a hobbyist scuba diver, as one does, he took his first excursion on a submarine in British Columbia, which then redirected his passions from space to ocean exploration. As a child, Stockton wanted to be an astronaut and the first person on Mars. He also had a love for aquatics and aviations, and his passions towards space then shifted to the ocean when he realized that all the cool things that he thought were in space were actually right here in the ocean, and that was the place to explore if we were looking at the least traversed place in the universe known to mankind, which it truly is.
Mm-hmm.
So originally, Stockton, with all of his money, Mr. Moneybags, he was just going to purchase a submarine.
Of course.
But he quickly learned that there were fewer than 100 privately owned submarines worldwide, and he would not be able to.
I believe it, because submarines are famously cramped.
Yes?
And, I mean, why would you want to purchase a submarine in the first place? They're just, like, claustrophobic, dangerous.
If you want to do some deep sea exploration, like Stockton did.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if you're a very privately independent person who hires researchers or shit, like Jacques Cousteau.
Right.
Yes.
We don't talk about him enough.
Honestly, we don't. He is a pop culture icon, and we do not talk about him enough. Truly.
Gosh.
So yeah, he couldn't buy a submarine. So he actually found a company who sold used submarine parts that could be used for assembly using U.S. naval blueprints. So he actually like made his own submarine using these spare parts, essentially. It's like the equivalent of like somebody who's like a hobbyist mechanic, but he's like a hobbyist submarine builder who uses U.S. naval blueprints to build a submarine.
Yeah, just, I guess, wildly irresponsible from the very start. It makes me think of those collectible figurines with the plastic where you just kind of push the pieces out, where you get the scalpel to like remove the pieces and then you put them together. You're not a, I mean, you are a nerd, but I guess you're not that kind of nerd.
I'm not that kind of nerd.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's something that jocks do.
Something that jocks do.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's kind of like that. So after dabbling in that for a while, in 2007, he started to explore the idea of founding his own submarine company, believing that there could be a significant market for underwater tourism. And that's how OceanGate was founded in 2009. Originally, Stockton said his goal for the company was to use commercial tourism to fund the development of new deep diving submersibles that would enable further commercial ventures, like introducing resource mining and disaster mitigation, which is a noble cause, I might say. So it started out very noble. Very soon after OceanGate was founded, his sights shifted. While performing market research for OceanGate, Stockton determined that the private market for underwater exploration had floundered due to a public...
Floundered. Pun alert. Pun alert. All right.
Due to a public reputation for danger and increased regulatory requirements to operate tourist submarines and submersibles. He believed these reasons were, quote, understandable but illogical, and that the perception of danger much exceeded the actual risk.
Whale, how about that? And pause for laughter.
Let that marinate for a minute. In particular, he was very critical of the Passenger Vessel Safety Act of 1993, a United States law which regulated the construction of ocean tourism vessels and prohibited dives below 150 feet, which Stockton described as a law which, quote, needlessly prioritized passenger safety over commercial innovation.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the kind of person we're working with.
Yeah, let's get that. Let's keep that ball rolling.
Yeah, and
let's prioritize commercialism over human safety.
Yep.
Always.
Always. Commercial innovation over public safety.
Yeah. I want that as a bumper sticker on my Nissan Juke.
Commercial innovation over public safety.
That'd actually be kind of badass.
Yeah, people would be like, what does it mean? People would be like, is he on my side or their side? Like, he would be like, which side is he on? I don't know. Actually, in a 2022 podcast with CBS reporter David Pogue, Pogue?
How do you spell that?
Pogue? Pogue?
Oh.
Who we will actually talk about a little bit later in the story. Rush discussed his views on the balance between risk and safety, where he said, quote, At some point, safety is just pure waste.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed. Don't get into your car. Don't do anything. At some point, you're going to take some risks, and it really has to be a risk-reward question. I think I can do this just as safely by breaking the rules.
It's so funny that he got crushed to death.
Yes, it kind of is. Yep.
Yeah, the irony is just beautiful. Mwah.
If you watch
Beautiful
the
stuff.
documentary over and over and over, he will say, I will put my life on the line before anybody gets hurt. Or I would die before that happened. Or anything else.
He put his life on the line, and then everybody got hurt.
And then everybody got hurt.
People got hurt to death.
To death.
Wow.
Which is the worst kind of hurt.
That is what we're talking about. Innovation.
Innovation. With his sights switched to underwater tourism now, he quickly set his target to one of the most recognizable words in the English language, the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
The Titanic, still to this day, draws fascination, with James Cameron, Titanic director, being only one of the few people who have visited the underwater giant. Stockton sites were immediately set to delivering an experience for people to pay to visit using one of his submersibles. The problem? Only 4 submersibles existed that could reach the depths of the Titanic. In order to visit the wreck, passengers would pay today's equivalent of a first-class ticket on the Titanic. So, in 1912, a first-class ticket was $4,350. Mm-hmm. In 2017, that number was $107,129.
A lot of cash to pay to get crushed to death.
Yes. And it was more, that was in 2017.
I can walk into the highway for free.
You can.
Buddy, I think you should maybe lower the price a little bit.
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
Just a skosh. Just a skosh.
Yeah, that's...
but for such a privilege.
The privilege, beautiful thing. I think that the irony here is, really, it's the only thing that I can think of at the moment.
No, and it's the only thing you're going to continue thinking about this entire time.
Yeah.
Now, with this OceanGate plan, this goal set in mind, let's talk about the team. I'm going to mention them all because they all play a part later on, but you don't need to remember their names. I'll remind you. So we have David Lockridge. Okay. He's the one who basically started on immediately. He ended up being the whistleblower for the project, and he was the original submersible pilot. He was very experienced in the Royal Navy as a commercial diver and ROV pilot, and had experience with submersibles for over 20 years. And he was doffed the Director of Marine Operations.
Oh.
Very rightly so. He had a lot of experience, very knowledgeable. Next, we had Bonnie Carl. She was an accountant and CPA. She said that she had a love of diving, and she was actually a longtime lover. She called herself a stalker of OceanGate even because she loved what they were doing. And she saw a bookkeeping job open up, and she figured it was a pay cut, but being able to love what you do and what you were trained to do felt unmissable. Sure. So she joined. Then we had Tony Nissen.
Tony Nissan?
No, Nissen.
Okay.
They said it over and over again. That's why I said it weird, because I was like, are you sure? Yeah.
How do you spell it?
Nissen.
Gotcha.
Nissen.
Gotcha.
He was an engineer. He started in the Navy as a deep-sea diver and studied ocean... I didn't finish that sentence.
You gotta leave this in.
I just didn't finish.
That's incredible.
That sentence. I believe he also did study engineering at Princeton, too. He was also a Princeton grad, from what I remember.
The irony of that line remaining unfinished in this script is also fantastic.
I'm so glad that you think it's ironic and not just sloppy. Appreciate that. Appreciate it. So OceanGate started with a submersible called Cyclops, which was a 5-passenger submersible that could reach a depth of 500 meters. Pretty impressive. However, they were just starting to build the Titan in 2013, which would need to reach a depth of 3,700 meters, which is 7.5 times the depth that the Cyclops could reach. So just keep that in mind.
I don't know numbers very well.
So basically, the Cyclops could dive 500 meters.
Okay.
Even if you don't know numbers.
How many Connecticuts is that?
How many Connecticuts? At least, I was going to say at least one, but even I don't know.
Connecticut is only 500 meters
I don't know.
I don't know either. I didn't study math.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was only 500 meters.
Uh-huh.
And they were aiming to go to 3,700 meters.
Damn, so that's a lot more.
A lot more. A lot more. So even if you're not good at math, that's a very long way off.
Yeah.
7.5 times the distance.
Yeah.
Not just that, but with all the problems of like pressure underwater,
Mm-hmm.
which we will get into very soon. Anybody with the right amount of money could build a submersible to reach the Titanic. That was no problem. He had the money. But Stockton wanted to be different, so he went about it differently. He wanted to be an innovator. He wanted fame. He wanted to be in the category of the likes of people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. He called these people, quote, big swinging dicks. And if he could pull this off, he too could be a big swinging dick.
Gosh.
That's a direct quote. I didn't just make that up. I would never do that.
That's hilarious. So did he pull it off?
Actually, he did. He actually
Really?
did. He actually did.
This is before his death.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So every submersible is different. And I have to go into this to explain how it failed. It might sound really dry, but like it is not. It is pretty crazy. So every submersible is different. They're usually made of steel or acrylic or titanium. But Stockton, he wanted to use carbon fiber in his design, which would be the first time carbon fiber would be used for a submersible to reach such extreme depths, which made it completely unknown.
Yeah.
He had used carbon fiber in his 500-meter Cyclops, but that was 500 meters. This is 3,700 meters, which is very, very different. The design of the Titan began at the University of Washington Applied Physics Laboratory in 2013. They actually partnered together. APL worked on the mechanics and the control system with PlayStation controllers, famously. OceanGate had an what?
That dual shock PlayStation controller with a cantilever tilt.
Yep.
Man, nothing like a PS2 controller. In what year did this take place again?
2013 is when they started to build it.
2013. I don't know when the different consoles came out, but I feel like a PS2 controller is still a little bit dated.
I believe that they did upgrade eventually, but it was still a controller. still a controller like you would use for gaming.
Do you think it started like rumbling right before the thing exploded?
Honestly, that would have been a great addition to their safety feature, and I don't think that they thought of that. So no, I don't think it was rumbling. Okay, they were probably just rumbling all around them.
That's so funny.
So they worked in tandem with APL, and this level of quality on board gave most of the crew a level of comfort and certainty, even though what they were doing was very uncertain. What they had done has never been done before, but it would be tested and regulated, and the vehicle was planned to be classed. And this means that a third-party agency would essentially independently certify it as safe, which is really important. And what I learned during this, if you decide to build a home-built aircraft or even a home-built submersible like Stockton did, you can take your friends in it as much as you want, as long as nobody pays you money. Once you start charging people to go on this trip, it needs to be classed for safety. The agency who would verify it would look at the build, the manufacturing process, the testing, all the past work done on it, everything, just to ensure the utmost safety. And the two other OceanGate subs were classed, so it was expected in a pretty standard operation. Stockton claimed that his submersible would be the safest mode of transportation in the world. There's a news clip of him in an interview where he says that after they're done testing it, it should be virtually indestructible. And the journalist interviewing him said, well, that's what we said about the Titanic, isn't it? Yeah.
This sounds like a movie.
It does. It really does. The level of irony in this story is just unmatched.
You know, there's actually a movie called Titanic 2.
I don't think that there is.
There is. No, there is.
No, I don't think that there is.
There is.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I doubt this.
You look it up.
Titanic 2?
Yes.
Oh, what is it about?
It's about, I believe, a replica of the Titanic that also sinks.
I'm saying I doubt it because after I watched the Titanic when I was like 7 years old, I looked up on YouTube to try to find if there was a sequel to the Titanic.
Well, it's not by James Cameron.
I'm saying,
yeah.
And I found this fake trailer made for a second Titanic, and it was basically like Jack time traveled and came back and wrote. It was this whole thing, and I bought it because I was 7 years old. And I was so excited. I told my sister, and she's like, I don't think that this is not it. And I'm like, yes, it is. And then I'm just saying, I was duped once at 7. I'm not going to be duped again.
No, it's a real movie.
Titanic 2. A 2010 film.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no, 2000. Yeah, 2000. An American drama disaster film written, directed, and starring. That's crazy. You know it's going to be bad whenever it's written, directed, and starring. Shane Van Dyke. It has a 1.7 out of 10 on IMDb.
Gosh.
Let's see what it has on Rotten Tomatoes. 15%.
What's the synopsis of the movie?
History threatens to repeat itself when a new luxury liner sets sail to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the original's doomed voyage.
I wonder what happens.
I bet I know. I bet I know.
The fact that they named the submersible the Titan.
Yes.
Is a little, I don't know.
Originally it was named Cyclops 2, but because the goal was the Titanic, the Titan was the name. Mm-hmm. Everyone who worked for OceanGate virtually said the same thing about Stockton. Initially, working with him was great, but it quickly turned very sour. He would openly reprimand and fire people on the spot. People knew that if you challenged the boss, you would probably get fired. Very quickly into development, the business model started to crumble. There was no income stream. Money was just being poured into building with no one paying for trips. And Stockton then said he wanted to flag the Titan in the Bahamas and launch out of Canada to avoid U.S. jurisdiction. And he said, direct quote, that if the U.S. government had a problem with it, he would buy a congressman to make his problems go away.
Well, that works. So
It does. It does. He was described as a very arrogant scientist, but a very humble person. He had big ideas like this floating city that could be submerged, or taking Pearl Jam into the ocean. He continued to find ways.
Pearl Jam into the ocean.
Taking Pearl Jam into the ocean.
Could they use the flute as like a snorkel?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't see why not. That seems pretty practical.
Uh-huh.
You're using a PlayStation controller. Why not use a flute?
The world doesn't make any sense, so
No.
Sure,
why not? He continued to find ways to skirt around jurisdiction. So, for example, he was insistent that no one was a passenger, which, if you recall, would need to be the case to be classed for safety, which it was not. They were all mission specialists, which is how they would avoid being classed. In the documentation his employees would sign before joining, he was very upfront that you were essentially signing your life away. Injury, death, any liability, you're stating that you're aware of it and will not sue. In addition to working with the university, all of these submersible experts, Stockton was also able to get P.H. Nargeolet, which, if you don't know who that is, he's referred to as Mr. Titanic. He is the #1 Titanic expert in the world. He was a deep dive explorer and had seen the Titanic himself over 30 times. He knew everything about it, had a ton of experience with submersibles, and so with him on board, the team felt very confident in the safety of the operation at first. And when asked why he joined the team, Nargeolet said that he had a really good career and he wanted to do whatever he could to help make the expedition safe. His daughter insisted that he didn't work for OceanGate. He was invited because of his expertise. Formerly known as Cyclops 2, Titan was a 5-person submersible vessel operated by OceanGate. It was about 22 feet long, 23,000 pounds, and was constructed by carbon fiber and titanium. And so basically, if you're thinking of the structure of it, you have the body, the hull of the submersible, which is made of carbon fiber. That's the core of it. And then on the end, you have the 2 titanium hemispheres, like I described being strewn about the ocean floor before. Those were fully intact. Those are made of titanium. But the cylinder itself was carbon fiber. And this is very important. To create Cyclops 2, or the Titan, Boeing engineers actually helped out to build the design of the submersible because they had experience with carbon fiber.
Oh, God, no.
But right away, they were very concerned with the performance of the carbon hull fiber. So if you don't know what carbon hull is, like I did not, let me explain it to you. Carbon fiber is essentially string made from carbon that is coated in glue or a resin to hold it together. It is incredibly strong, but the main draw was that it was lighter and cheaper than titanium. The main costs of submersible operations is the ship. It's all about the cost of the ship itself and how do you transport that ship from one place to the other? How do you get it in and out of the ocean? How do you get it to the ocean? That's 90% of the cost right there. So if you were to build a submersible like this out of steel titanium, you would need something incredibly heavy to lift it out of the water.
Right.
You need lots more money for that transportation.
Yeah. The fact that Boeing engineers...
It is also ironic.
It just keeps getting worse and worse.
And it doesn't get any better anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad when the Boeing engineers tell you that they don't have faith in the structure of it.
Because famously, Boeing engineers have faith in most things working when they don't.
When they don't. And have historically not worked.
Damn.
Yeah.
The story is way crazier than I remember hearing.
It's getting even crazier, Dylan. Just wait.
All right.
Buckle up. We've got more. With carbon fiber that the submersible was now made out of, they can just lift it with a small crane. It's 23,000 pounds, but they could still lift it in a warehouse to work on it.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. And so that all sounds good and fine and dandy, but carbon fiber is idiosyncratic. It is not absolute. Titanium is absolute. We know it. We can rely on it well. It is structurally sound. Carbon fiber is not. The strings of carbon can easily snap. You don't know when they will snap or how many it will take to snap before the whole thing collapses. And that's the main problem with the submersible as a whole. It is the uncertainty and the inability to replicate results over and over.
Yeah.
To the untrained eye, if you were to look at this carbon fiber hull, it looks like Swiss cheese. You can see the porosity. You can see the strands. You can see the resin. You can see like the gaps in it from the strings in the carbon fiber. It's crazy. So like...
You just gotta trust me. It's gonna work.
Basically. So like, I know nothing about engineering, but seeing that and being like, oh yeah, it's gonna go 23,000 feet underwater. Fuck that, I'm not getting in that.
Yeah, is he just going to plug a hole with his pinky?
Basically.
Damn.
It's crazy.
See, but this is innovation, and that should trump safety.
Do you want to hear some more innovation?
Yes, I do.
To try to help with the safety? They coined this acoustic monitoring system, which was created to help listen for the carbon fiber cracking. Essentially, it was an array of microphones all over the hull that quite literally listened for the cracking and breaking of the carbon fiber when testing the depth that it could go.
So...
yes, take that in for a minute.
Just so the people inside the submersible will know when they're about to die. They'll have like maybe 5 or 6 seconds so they can say their last words.
Yeah.
And that's it. Which is honestly... thoughtful. It's
So Stockton was a bit more optimistic than that.
Okay.
But that is the reality of what actually happened.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
So
terrifying.
I don't even want to imagine what it was like in those last moments.
Well, not just that. So we have the acoustic monitoring system, but you don't need that to hear the cracking of the carbon fiber. Whenever they had camera crews inside of the submersible, you can hear it cracking audibly. You can hear the loud pops and bangs and cracks and creaks of these strings breaking. The acoustic monitor was just there basically to reinforce and try to hear the smaller breakage and show you the pattern over time of how much it's breaking over time.
So they knew that this material wasn't going to hold up.
Yes.
So they pretty much... why is this guy so confident that they're going to be able to survive this expedition?
Because, so first, we're only in we're not even at year 10 yet.
That's true.
So imagine working on something for 10 years and then being told that it's not going to work. That's a hard pill to swallow, that you were wrong. And it's a lot of money and time and investment and ingenuity to just eat.
This is a sunk cost fallacy.
But if you're Stockton Rush, it's even harder
to
just eat that as a result. And yeah, sunken cost, play on words.
Oh, not bad.
Sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah.
So yeah, the sound of the carbon fiber breaking was believed to determine when it would break, but this is not the case. Clearly, the website claimed that their proprietary real-time monitoring system would provide an unparalleled safety feature. They claimed that this would allow everyone in the submersible time to descend and reach the surface safely if it were compromised, when in reality, each crack signals a compromise of the structure. It was simply signaling a game of Russian roulette where the container is weakening with every snap and could implode anytime.
Do you think, like, when they started hearing the cracks and the snaps and everything, Stockton was like, I didn't hear anything?
No, it's crazy because what he'll do is he'll acknowledge it. He'll say it's the carbon fiber seasoning, or it's just
seasoning like a cast iron.
Yes, or it's just the noise of the water, or maybe like a fish hitting the boat. Maybe it's just adjusting to the new depths. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. Happens. It's totally fine. He'll say it over and over and over again. It's crazy. And the problem is that yes, we can hear the cracking and track that is increasing, but there's no certainty for when it would fail. It's like you can bend and bend and bend like a tree limb and hear it crack, but you never know when it's going to snap because it depends on where it's cracking. It depends on the amount of pressure. It depends on just randomness, like where in the structure is it breaking. Mm-hmm. It's not a certainty if it's going to fail. It will fail. It's just a matter of when. So that was the main issue with this real-time monitoring system that they just put all their faith in. And ideally, they would hear nothing through the whole test, but that was never once the case in any test that they ran. It was always cracking to some degree.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, sometimes you need to innovate, and that takes precedent over safety.
Yeah. What was it? Commercial innovation over public safety.
Yes.
Commercial innovation over public safety.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's it. That's the title. If it's not the title, I'll make it the title. If it's not the title, yell at me.
People might die, but we made money.
Yep.
Yeah.
People might die, but we made... That's also a good bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Maybe we should make that the podcast.
Yeah, add it to the merch store.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So over and over and over again, through their tests, this ship would always implode. So what they would do is they would start with these smaller scaled versions. Instead of making a big one, they would make this smaller scale and use it and put it in pressurized tanks to mimic that 4,000 meters that they would need to reach for it to reach the Titanic. Every time it would implode. Every single time it would implode. It was always crack. That was never a guess. It was always a guess of whether or not it would implode. They were able to get a couple successful runs, which is whenever they made the full size. But still, it was still cracking. It was still breaking. And they're then reusing these vessels over and over for these dives. They're not making new ones every time. They're using a broken, busted, cracked hull every time, and it's only getting more busted and more cracked every time you go down.
Holy face, man. It's the amount of denial you would have to be to put yourself in something like that.
It's crazy.
Did this guy just not care if you die? He
was so confident and so arrogant. I think he just convinced himself that he was infallible.
All right.
And actually, in 2016, the team set to explore the sunken Andrea Doria on the Cyclops 1 as basically like a Titanic trial run. Again, remember, the Cyclops 1, it could go to 500 meters. They're basically just testing to see how far they can go and if going around a sunken ship can work.
Right.
So they're testing this, but it's an incredibly dangerous exploration that they're doing. But they took 4 paying passengers on board with them during this test.
Yeah.
Naturally. And like the Titanic, the plan was to map the entire wreck. And Lockton, remember Lockton? He was the one who was director of marine operations. He was going to be the pilot for the submersible. He was the whistleblower. He was supposed to be the pilot because he's the one who was going to be piloting the Titan. At the last minute, Stockton said, No, you're not going. I'm going to pilot this thing. And Lockton's like, I implore you to not do that. You don't have any experience piloting a submersible, let alone a wreck where it's incredibly dangerous. There's debris everywhere. And he explained, not only do you have no experience, this is an incredibly dangerous and unprecedented situation where we're taking passengers aboard.
Yeah.
It's not just you. There are passengers who are paying for this. And the shipwreck is decaying rapidly. And so it's basically like a debris minefield down there. And with how delicate carbon fiber is, that's bad news.
Yeah.
That's bad news. So Stockton's finally like, okay, I'm going to pilot it, but you can come on board just in case. So Lockton agrees, like, fine, whatever. I'll be there to help watch just in case anything goes wrong. Well, guess what? Something went wrong.
Okay. That's actually fine, because sometimes things do go wrong, and that's why we have the microphones.
Yeah. Except it wasn't that. The problem was that Stockton, with zero piloting experience for a submersible, smashed straight down into the wreckage of the sunken ocean liner after demanding to control the submersible with zero experience. And he got the submersible stuck directly underneath the bow of the boat, bringing the team into a very dangerous debris field and a ticking time bomb.
Oh.
Quite literally wedged under the bow of the boat.
Which seems kind of difficult to do.
It does.
But he did it.
Yeah.
Against the odds.
Yep.
Which counts for something.
Yep. Any move or contact with debris could instantly kill them. It was, any move upward would send them straight into the bow of the ship because they were trapped underneath it. So.
Did the Cyclops also have the carbon fiber body? Mm-hmm. Oh, why did he insist on carbon fiber? Because it looks cool?
It was cheaper. It was the cheaper option. Again, how do you mobilize?
The weight. Yeah.
The weight of it all, the cost of it all. It's just cheaper, and it saves money overall. Money over safety.
Money over safety.
So Lockridge, he took over the control. He demanded control. He's like, you're going to kill us if you move another inch. Don't touch the controller. Let me have it. So he took over. He maneuvered them to safety. I don't think the passengers realized how much danger they were actually in because they were like laughing about it afterwards. Like, we were stuck. It was so cool. We like saw the bow of the ship. You could have fucking died. But after that, Stockton cut Lockridge off of communications entirely. He left him out of emails, verbal communication. Basically the submersibles that Lockridge was supposed to be piloting, he had no communication on. He was just cut out completely. Well, the engineering director, Tony Nissen, and Lockridge would butt heads frequently because Nissen would hire people fresh out of college with zero submersible experience to work on this incredibly complex project. And Lockridge, being the one who is going to be piloting this submersible, has been incredibly vocal and concerned about safety since the beginning.
Yeah.
He was the only one insisting that the pieces and vehicles needed to be inspected, but he was always brushed off. If you questioned Stockton, that was it. And that's exactly what happened. One day, Stockton took the board out to lunch, told them that there was no need for a third-party inspection, no need for classification, and that was the moment when people started to leave. Every contact in the submersible industry told him this was dangerous, and he shouldn't be doing it. But again, that would require Stockton to admit that he was wrong.
Yeah. And think about the money.
Yeah. The money. Think about
the cash.
The money. The cold, hard cash.
Yeah, think about the cash.
Think about the bennies, the little Benjamins.
If you were in Stockton's situation, wouldn't you think about the cash? Wouldn't you want the
generational wealth and Titanic money? So nice.
Seems pretty good to me.
Seems pretty good.
Seems worth getting imploded.
Just fucking spit. So after the Titan was finally built to the full scale, Lockridge was told, you're going to be manning this in a couple of days. Again, no communication, just like, you're going to be manning it. Mm-hmm. And Lockridge, again, is like, no way in hell I'm getting in that. I told you I'm not getting in it unless it's inspected. So Stockton said, okay, if you feel this strongly about it, you inspect it. You inspect it and write a full report on everything you're concerned about. So he does. Lockridge takes 3 days or so, writes a very full, detailed, very respectful email and report issuing his concerns. The very next day, Stockton calls a meeting with him, the engineer, HR, all these people. And basically, it's recorded. So like it makes you so mad because you know that thing when like people are recording something and they know it's recording, they try to like make themselves look better because it's recorded. He does that. So he's basically like, how long have you had these concerns? Like, what's bringing this up now? Like, why are you coming to me with this? Like, when did you start doubting the project? And Lockridge is like, literally since day one. And I've told you that since day one. And this is just the first one putting it in writing.
Yeah.
So they go back and forth a little bit. Stockton's like, if I don't want anyone on our team who doesn't believe in what we're doing. So he fires him.
Honestly, that is the best thing that could happen to him.
It really was. It was. And then he turns to, I think her name was Anne, whoever the accountant's name was. Yeah. Nope. Doesn't matter. He turns to the accountant, the one who joined because she was a CPA.
Yeah.
Just joined because of her love of it. He turns to her and is like, hey, guess what? You're going to be the pilot now.
Certified pilot assistant.
Certified pilot assistant is what CPA stands for. And she's like, what the fuck? I don't know anything about piloting a submersible. He's like, I want a female pilot. It's going to be good for the media. It's going to be really great for exposure. So that night she went home and she quit as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. Another great move.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah.
I mean, just like imagine being in that meeting, hearing everything that could potentially go wrong with this project. And
then he turns to you with zero submersible piloting experience.
Yeah.
He's like, guess what? You're going to be piloting it.
You just got
Congratulations.
promoted. Oh my God.
It's basically what happened.
Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a fun little story, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun little story to tell. Really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're in the Bahamas and now we're actually testing out the Titan itself. This is the first time that we're testing the Titan.
No, I'm just locked in.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're testing the Titan at these depths. Stockton is the only one who goes in it first, which honestly, good for him. So, but he's testing it like how they were doing the smaller scale tests, but with himself in it in the ocean.
Right.
So it's not good. Still not good. Like good that he had the wherewithal to not bring anybody else on there, but why are we in this at all? So he's testing it and, he would be brought back up in one piece each time, but with water leaking inside. When the seal was opened, and over again, the real-time monitoring system showed continuous cracks. Deeper and deeper you went, over and over. And if your monitoring system is showing spikes, it's still breaking. It's not like it's not breaking. And remember, over the course of these tests, they're using the same vessel. He dove about over 40 times. And it's just breaking more and more every time.
It's kind of weird because there's been kind of a trend in carbon fiber items. Mm-hmm. Like whether it's like rings, carbon fiber rings, carbon fiber cars and car
parts.
I thought it was a pretty tough material. It
is a tough material. It is very tough. But the problem is it's not meant to go to 4,000 meters under the sea with all that pressure.
Right. Most things aren't.
Yes. Most things aren't.
Yeah.
And not just that, but the porosity of it. Think about the porosity of that material and then putting that underwater.
Mm-hmm. Not great.
No, not great. So it is a very tough material. It is. It is very tough. It is used for a lot of really practical things. This is not one of them.
But it looks so cool.
It looks really cool, guys.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So it was during these tests in the Bahamas that the team found a crack in the sub. Mm-hmm. And they brought it back to the U.S. to fix it. And they told the team, don't tell anybody about this. So they brought it back. They replaced the whole carbon fiber hull. But they didn't test that before they replaced it.
They replaced it with another carbon fiber hull.
A brand new one that was not tested before. So at this point, David Lockridge, the whistleblower, the pilot who was fired, he contacted OSHA to report it and be a whistleblower for his experiences, which he's doing, he has a very high standard and he's doing what he thinks is best, which is.
Yeah.
He was told that he would be enrolled in the whistleblower protection program and that he would be protected. Mm-hmm. He wasn't. Apparently the whistleblower protection program means jack shit. And the OSHA investigator himself said, it doesn't mean you're protected like the witness protection program. It doesn't really mean anything. So as soon as, this investigation was being opened on OceanGate, Stockton goes back and sues Lockridge and his family for defamation and all this and that. And it was essentially just this huge drain on Lockridge. The investigation went on for a couple years, but eventually Lockridge did have to rescind the complaint. And then nobody followed up on it because once you rescind the complaint, it's rescinded entirely. It's fucked.
That's egregious. The same thing happened with Boeing.
Yeah?
Where you had those people, the whistleblowers for Boeing, and they got fucking assassinated.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Literally assassinated.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shit. Fuck.
Yeah, we could cover an episode on that.
I didn't know that.
The fact that Boeing killed people.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Fuck. Well, luckily they didn't get actually assassinated, but they got monetarily assassinated, which was terrible for him and his family. So they had to rescind the complaint, and then the whole case was stopped. Just dropped entirely. So anyway, the team is making this new carbon fiber hull in 2019, but there was no successful shrunken scale model that was tested before actually making the full version. They just made the full version and put it in, which was a huge problem. So to gain media attention, Stockton invited CBS Sunday Morning David Pogue, same guy as before from the interview, to take down a trip with him to the Titan. It was the second summer of the Titan operating, and they would make 5 expeditions a summer, 1 9-day trip as an expedition, and they would have 5 chances to see the Titanic. So out of 25 opportunities per summer, they had only reached the Titanic 9 times in this season, successfully.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
This was because of... So they did reach the depths of the Titanic.
Oh, I thought they exploded on the first go-around.
They kept... No. They didn't explode on the first go-around. So they did meet what they were trying to do. A couple times.
Yeah.
They were successful in that regard.
Innovation wins again.
Yeah. The problem is, it can't be replicated reliably.
Yeah.
And they're using the same damaged vessel over and over and over again. That gets more and more damaged every time. So they claimed to have this rule of 3 safety culture, whereas if 3 things were out of place or not optimal, they wouldn't dive. So if they lose comms or the weather or something isn't right on land, the fog rolls in, whatever the case may be, they won't dive, which is why they have a couple opportunities to dive. So the reporter, David, trusted that he wouldn't be invited on live-ass TV for a potentially dangerous situation. So he went to the depths of the Titanic on this dive. And P.H. Nargelet, the Titanic expert, claimed that he had no worries. He was told on no uncertain terms that he was lending his credentials to something that had a very clear and obvious flaw, but he kept doing it. And again, just kept saying, if I can make it a little bit safer, that's what I'll do. Kind of noble, I guess, but kind of led to the delusion aspect of it with thinking it was safe by having this famed expert on there.
Right.
Now the last dives. Unbeknownst to the passengers of either one of these dives, the carbon fiber vessel was kept outside in the freezing temperatures of Newfoundland, where it was never meant to reach because they insisted the cost of transport back to a warehouse was too much. So again, thinking of carbon fiber, we know this porous material. What happens? Here's a pop quiz for you guys. Even if you're not a science expert, let me know in the comments. What happens when something is frozen?
It expands.
Yep. So these carbon fibers are expanding in this immense temperature and then decompressing, which is stretching them and compromising them even more. Not only that, but if water were to get into it, because it's incredibly porous, that expands it even more, and that can lead to even more cracks and problems within, like, that's like, why would you do that? Why would you? It's porous. It's literally porous.
Yeah.
So, influencer and scuba diver Jake Kohler, known as Scuba Jake on YouTube, reached out to OceanGate to go aboard the Titan and see the Titanic. He was really excited about it. It's what he does. So that spring, they had not yet had a successful dive because of either the weather or technological issues. But on his 9-day expedition, Jake is still really excited. But the weather was horrible again. So much so that every single dive chance for the Titanic, all 5 of them, were canceled. Still wanting to give it one last try for Stockton, he decided, you know what? We can't dive out to the Titanic, but let's just try to dive a little bit closer to the Newfoundland Great Banks and just see what we can do. On the way down, this is the part that freaked me out the most. So I was telling you that there was a part in the documentary that I was freaked out about.
Yeah, you mentioned.
On the way down, they were locked into this tank. They were submerged. Jake remembered how his feet were cold. And at first I was like, no shit, Sherlock. You're wearing socks and you're in the middle of Newfoundland, Canada. Of course your feet are cold. But then he said he only later realized that on the inside of the vessel, water was beating up as condensation, which is why his feet were cold, because his feet were soaked from the condensation in what was supposed to be an airtight vessel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did he bring a change of socks?
I'm sure he did. It was a 9-day expedition, so I'm sure he had multiple sets of everything.
Well, problem solved.
Problem solved. Luckily, after being locked in, the dive was canceled because the fog had rolled in. Had the fog not rolled in, it could have been Jake who had imploded.
Yeah.
The Titan tried to make some more dive attempts. None of them were successful again. And this is whenever we reach the final dive.
You're pretty chipper for what's about to happen.
Well, I already told you what happened. So basically, this was the last dive that was attempted in 2023. It was June 18th. And the first dive and final dive that these people took on their expedition, communication suddenly stopped. 16 minutes after the communications from the Titan ceased, an unexpected sound reached an underwater recording device 900 miles from the Titanic. Like I said, the Navy picked this up as an anomaly, and they actually called that it was the sound of an implosion. Way before anyone else knew. I think that they were just trying to give hope to the family, just in case they were wrong. Why would you say the worst if you're not sure if that is true? Which I understand.
And how do you even give that news anyway?
It's true. It's true. Also...
Do you say imploded over the phone? Do you couch it in another language?
They imploded. Just like that. Just
hang up the phone. They imploded.
Yeah. So, yeah, they also didn't inform any government agency that they were diving. So that's why the Navy detected this as an anomaly, because they had no record of anyone going down. They're like, what is this weird noise that is happening? It sounds like an implosion. What is it?
I think it's someone stuck in the Titanic.
Yeah, the last survivor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, concerning the details of the implosion, what was that like, do you think? So, it happened in such a short amount of time, milliseconds. It would have happened before anybody realized what was happening. You wouldn't have felt any pain. It would have just been like a blink. Like quicker than a blink. It was really crazy because I was reading that because sound travels so fast in water and the communication lagged a bit, they actually heard the implosion before the last message was received. So in reality, they had heard this noise and then they had gotten a message from the submersible that was like, this is where we're at. This is our depth. Or like, it was like a ping. So they thought everything was fine. So it wasn't until later that they knew something was very, very much wrong. James Cameron, the director, he's also basically a Titanic expert. He's one of the most knowledgeable people on the Titanic because he learned so much about it and explored it so much for the movie. But because he is so familiar with submersibles now, he says, and many other submarine experts as well, say that the early warning system probably did alert the passengers to an impending delamination of the hull. So they probably did have some warning that there was an emergency happening. And they also knew that they had dropped their ascent weights and were trying to come up to trying to manage the emergency. So what was probably happening was they heard the alarm for the emergency, the ascent weights went up, and then shortly on their way to ascending, because you can't tell when the carbon fibers are going to break, it broke on the way up and it imploded. I see.
So that's probably logistically what had happened there. And yeah, it happened so quickly. Nobody would have known.
You know, if you switch the letters around on Titan, it spells taint. Is that anything?
Title. Title.
Is that anything, folks? Is that anything?
Tell me. So yeah, that's the story. The passengers who had tragically perished on board were Shazda Dawood, a Pakistani businessman, and his son Solomon Dawood. Hamish Harding, who was a billionaire businessman, aviator, and space tourist. It killed P.H. Nargile, the #1 Titanic expert, because he was on board, and Stockton Rush. They all died in the implosion. It was very preventable.
Every death is a tragedy. Do you have anything else to follow up with? I don't really. You know, every death is a tragedy. You know, we make light of it because that's what human beings do with tragedy. You know, but it is it's kind of sad that all the signs were there that something was going to go wrong.
It's terrible, and that's the thing. Like, I can't even blame these passengers who paid money to go and see it for like they should, like, no, like, how would they know that this shit was happening behind closed doors? I mean, every aspect of it was like shut down. And truthfully, if I were a billionaire, I'd probably pay to go see the Titanic if someone were taking me down. Like, why the fuck not?
Yeah. But we do kind of live in a culture of innovation over safety in a way.
We do, 110%.
You know, a lot of companies put up the impression of being safe. But companies also exist almost solely to create profit.
Make money.
For the people.
For billionaires.
Yeah.
For people like this.
More or less. And to see the result of that in such a dramatic way is something that is tragic and has also been just endlessly memed.
Yeah, truly. I saw there was it's terrible. In the documentary, it is terrible, but it's kind of funny. It's not funny, but it kind of is. There was a graph that was like Titanic deaths in history, and it was like obviously this huge spike, like 1,500 people in 1912. Nothing, and then a little blip in 2003.
That's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny.
But yeah,
no, even like jokes aside, like it's really tragic, and like anything like it's really I hate the irony in it for Stockton Rush's demise, and all he wanted was fame, and that's exactly what he got, just not quite in the way that he wanted it.
Right.
It's just it is incredibly tragic. I mean, like you said, it's just kind of like commentary on how we do things for profit, and commercial innovation over safety.
Yes, commercial innovation over safety.
Every time. And it's also just really fucked up how like you can report these things and nothing happens because the case either gets rescinded because you can't afford the countersuit or just whatever. Like, it's just crazy.
There are consequences to living in a capitalist society.
Yeah.
This is an example of one of those consequences. People die.
People die.
Period. I mean, that's pretty much the short and long of it.
Yeah.
Until we restructure things to support people instead of profit.
Yeah.
It is going to continue to be this way.
No, 100%.
People will continue to die
110%.
For stupid reasons.
And this isn't the first time either. This is probably one of the most sensationalized times, but it happens every day. Yeah. Every day.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Well, yeah. It's that was a hell of a story. I got to tell you, that was really interesting.
It was a little longer, but it just like it just like really grabbed my attention. I was like, this is fucking wild.
Yeah, it's worth
everyone needs to hear this.
100%. Well, where can they find us?
They can find us at ME Crisis Pod on Facebook and Instagram. I have to address this, guys. Listen.
Something to address? Okay.
I have been slacking in terms of posting on social media, and I understand
I noticed.
That. I understand that, but guys,
the posts.
Yes.
From like 20 episodes ago.
I am not good at social media. Period. And I can't even keep up with my own, let alone a podcast that I run. So I am trying. I am making up for it. I am making old posts so they can go live, and I will get caught up eventually.
She's trying her hardest.
I'm doing my damnedest, guys.
Don't be mean.
So,
all right.
yes. So I realized there are some outdated posts going live, but I'm trying to be consistent in that regard at least. So
and that's admirable. And thank you for that.
Thank you. So yes, I understand I fucked up for a while and then I got in over my head and I was like, oh, it just doesn't matter anymore. And then I was like, it does matter and I'm going to do it. I'm going to fix it. So
good for you.
That's what we're doing. So
yes.
You can find us there for the outdated posts and the new posts, which I will get caught up with this weekend.
Well, thank you for doing that, Madison.
Yes. And then you can also email us at myexistentialcrisispodcast@gmail.com. Give us a little shout, a little shouty who.
And you can find me on Instagram at MarvelFolk.
And me at my name. So that's where you can find me. All right.
All right, folks.
Bye.
Bye.